Welcome to the Recklessly Skeptical podcast. My name is Josh,
This is Joe.
And this is Matt.
and you can find us on YouTube at Recklessly Skeptical, as well as you can find us on Facebook at The Evil Atheist Facebook group. You can also find our personal channels on YouTube as ZZZ Giant Awake and The Evil Atheists. But please, really, I want to emphasize coming and hanging out with us on Facebook at The Evil Atheist, evil being in quotation marks. So, now we're going to spend the most of the next half hour talking about the Democratic race, focusing on Bernie and Hillary. And I think this is something we need to talk about with the elections right around the corner. We might not even have another episode up and ready by the time Monday next week rolls around. So, I mean, the time is nigh for voting in Iowa. And then shortly after then it'll be Vermont, and then it'll open up to Nevada and Carolina, and I think it's South Carolina and one other place. But we'll get to that.
Nevada?
I said Nevada.
Oh, did you? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not listening.
Oh.
You said Bernie, and I just started getting all dreamy.
So all of us, and this is after months of conversation and us agreeing and disagreeing, we all have come to the conclusion after actually testing out Bernie Sanders that we all really like Bernie Sanders. We're all fairly anti-establishment. We all want money out of politics. We all want the opportunities to come to the lower class. We all hate that the top 1% is making most of the money and is more wealthy than more than 50% of the bottom part of America. So those types of things drive us to make our political decisions. I mean, do you guys want to speak for yourself for a second?
No, I agree with you 100%. I also really like what he's done for the past 30 plus years. He's been fighting the same damn issues, and he hasn't budged.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. And I just want to point out that I used to be more libertarian, but I've swayed over. I've come over more leaning to the Democratic side, and I think it's a great thing. And I hope everybody can look at the issues and agree.
The real issues.
Yeah, and some things I feel like I lean more libertarian sometimes, but overall I consider myself a progressive. So in the polls, what's been happening so the tone of that race has changed drastically over the last 2 months. Hillary and the establishment and media has been, except for independent media, has been essentially ignoring Bernie Sanders, even though he's had these rallies where he's had thousands of people out. He's been filling up rooms just like Donald Trump is. He's very ad populum. He's attacking from what I consider to be the correct side, where he's talking about getting money out of politics and taking steps to close some of the gap that exists between the upper classes and the lower classes, and that includes taxing the upper class correctly. And I don't think that I'm saying that incorrectly, because I think that if you look at the tax breaks that businesses and wealthy people have gotten, they pay far less in taxes than they should. And they pay far less businesses. There are 3 or 4 multi-million-dollar businesses that paid $0 in taxes for a couple of years of Obama's presidency, and that's not the change that I signed up for when I pushed to have Obama elected. So, there's a lot to go off of here. The reason for these attacks and the reason the tone has changed is because all of a sudden, it looks like Bernie Sanders can win the Democratic nomination, which is something that Hillary did not, and the establishment did not want to recognize.
Yeah, and Hillary's definitely going on the attack. I can go ahead and jump in on. Do you want to go a little more?
Yeah,
Josh?
I just wanted to bring up the polls real quick. So the first 2 states that we talked about were New Hampshire and Iowa. And in Iowa, there was one point back in let me pull up the dates. Back in September, where Bernie had closed in on Hillary, and then and that's when Biden was still in the polls. Once Biden dropped out, Hillary opened a 24-point lead on the election, and so until recently. Until it looks like January 10th-ish, that's when Bernie really started closing in the polls. And in some polls, Bernie leads, and in other polls, Bernie's behind. In some of those polls, Bernie is behind drastically, but in other polls, Bernie has a healthy lead. So it's kind of hard to just lean on the polls alone to understand who has the real lead. And really what it comes down to, and this is something me and Joe have talked a bit about, is it comes down to who shows up to the polls. Who is going to be there? Is it going to be Hillary's establishment voters and the ones who come out regularly, or is it going to be more of the new youth who have been energized and are actually excited? Because for the first time in any election that I can think of, I'm actually excited to go and cast my ballot. I'm going to actually vote in a primary election for the first time.
Yeah, see, same here. I've never voted because I haven't felt very strong about any candidate, and this time I'm actually like, oh my God, Bernie, I love this guy. He's real when he talks. He's real. It's not a robot and stuff, and you can tell he gets seriously angry about the issues and stuff, and I feel like that's somebody who's actually going to do something about the issues, and he actually has a plan. Obama came in. Obama said hope and change, but he never actually gave us like a real plan and something to really do, But Bernie comes in and he's like, yeah, hope and change, and this is the change. This is what we're going to do. This is what needs to be done, and I've been saying it for 30-plus years. Let's do it, people.
Yeah, the two big differences, and this is a conversation that Matt and I have had, is that between Bernie and Obama is one of them is that Obama took campaign donations. He took money from the establishment. And when you take money from the establishment, you're going to make promises that you have to deliver on. And Bernie hasn't had to do that yet. He's been raising, he hasn't been keeping up with Hillary, but he's been raising a really respectable amount of money with like an average donation amount of $33 per donation. He's gotten millions of donations, unlike Hillary Clinton. He's passed all of Obama's because Obama set a lot of records for how many donations he received. Again, not the size is not what matters, but how many separate donations. But Bernie's been blowing past all of Obama's records. And then the other thing, Matt, do you remember what it was?
Remind me.
That Bernie has a history. Unlike Obama,
Oh, yes.
Obama was a one-term senator going into his presidential run. He was very popular, and the way he voted, it looked like he was a real progressive, like he might really cause things to change. And that's kind of why at the time I bought into his rhetoric. But now that now that we're looking at Bernie Sanders, who's been in for 40 years, and this is something that Hillary has attacked him for. Hillary asked the question, oh, well, I'm going to let the listeners decide, but Bernie's been in politics for 40 years. But he's been
He
voting,
is establishment.
Yeah.
She was saying he is part of the establishment. But he's not. He's been fighting it the whole fucking time.
Yeah, you can look back all his terms and see he's been saying the same thing the whole time.
And then he's really opened up in New Hampshire. He's really drastically leading. And the question that we want to focus on is there have been a number of attacks this last week and a little more than a week against Bernie Sanders by Hillary Clinton and the establishment Democrats. These are not Republicans. These are the Democrats that are attacking Bernie. And the question is really do we want to see, do any of these attacks have substance? Should we actually listen to and respect any of these attacks? Is there any real reason for concern in this? So, Matt, you have your story pulled up, right?
Yeah. So Hillary started attacking Bernie about his health care plan. And I'll just read you what she said, and then I'll explain my view on it. So Hillary said, and I quote, his plan would take Medicare and Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program and the Affordable Care Act health care insurance and private employer health insurance, and he would take that all together and send health insurance to the states, turning over your and my health insurance to the governors. We had enough of a fight to get the Affordable Care Act, so I don't want to rip it up and start over. Now, here's the problem. She's using one of Bernie's old plans. That's a line from one of his...
Sorry, 1 second.
So Hillary Clinton is jumping on a line in an old Sanders bill that says his plan would be administered, Jesus Christ, by the states. And that's just a lie. His new plan is a single-payer system. Just like a lot of other countries, it would cover everybody, period.
Yeah, that old plan she's referring to is something he wrote up a long time ago trying to please both the Democrats and the Republicans. And, of course, it didn't pass. But he helped write up the Obama bill, Obamacare, basically. But, of course, he had to, appease to the Republicans. But once he becomes president, he'll be able to say, no, this is what we want. We want a single-payer healthcare system.
Yeah,
and it'll work.
Yeah, and I want to play an audio clip here in a second. But real quick, I want to say that two things. And actually, I'll wait to say one of them until after we listen to his soundbite. But her attacks on this, she's acting like what he's going to do. This is the order he's going to take. He's going to repeal everything, so we go back to the old system, and then put the single payer in place. Like he's going to take everything away first, so that way the Republicans can then block him on the other thing, and we'll lose everything. Of course not. That's not how it's going to go. What he's going to do is put a bill through Senate that would replace Obamacare at that point. He's not going to do anything about the current system until and unless he can get a single payer system in place. Now, I'm going to pull up the audio for clips, so give me just one second. And I've got it right here. So here it comes.
Well, if you consider a Medicare premium as a tax, that's true. Healthcare is expensive. But what we are doing, and this is a point, and it bothers me a little bit, Republicans often make this attack, and I'm hearing too much of it from the Clinton camp. We are eliminating private health insurance premiums. You're not going to have to pay any. So yes, Medicare premiums will, in fact, be there for all people. But at the end of the day, the middle-class family, getting rid of all private health insurance premiums, will save thousands of dollars a year in their health care costs, and I think most people will be appreciative. The other point I want to make here, Jake, is, the vision that we're fighting for here is one that went back to FDR, to Harry Truman. If Hillary Clinton were to say, look, this is a tough political fight, I agree with her. I'm not saying you're going to get this done the first 2 days of my presidency, but I think we can rally the American people around two principles. Health care should be a right of all people. We should not be paying far more per capita than other countries on health care. And that's the fight I'm prepared to wage.
So, yeah, I mean, you hear Bernie talk about it, and it's not a radical idea. Like, this isn't something, and it's what Bernie mentioned. It's so weird that Hillary is attacking him from this place. And this is the other point that I was wanting to make, is that the single-payer system is something that Hillary fought for before Barack Obama got elected. This is something that she believed in. So we're talking about her normally flip-flopping from one position where she said, like, same-sex marriage is not something that she believes in, and then she flip-flops to the more progressive side. And on this issue, she went from a single-payer system, health care for everyone, to the opposite side, under the guise that, it's going to cost $15 trillion. She knows that's not fucking true.
Yeah, it's going to, save $5 trillion?
It's going to, it's something like that.
The top economists out there said it would actually save $5 trillion.
Yeah, for the Americans over a period of time, because what it's going to do is take away all of our premiums and roll it into something that's more affordable for everyone.
And I just think it's funny that, like you said, Josh, this is not a radical idea. Every other modern country has some sort of single-payer system. Everybody has health insurance.
We are the only industrialized country that doesn't have that.
Yeah, and so it's radical to not have it.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous that this is now where Hillary Clinton's attacking from. She's reversed her stance on it. And the other attack that she tends to take up is that, or the other attack that is tended to take up against single-payer system is that, it's not pragmatic. We barely got Obamacare through. But that's not how you elect people, and I'll talk about this in more depth towards the end of the show. So we also have another soundbite of Senator Claire McCaskill, who's essentially establishment. She was for Barack Obama back in the day, and now she's really pro-Hillary. I'm going to play the soundbite where she explains that Bernie is not electable and that Bernie is going to actually damage the party with his run. Or if he becomes the nominee. So here it comes.
My colleague said the Republican attack machine has chainsaws for hands. And I think the point I was trying to make is Bernie has not felt those chainsaws, and they would come out with a vengeance if he was our nominee.
Do you think a socialist, a self-declared socialist, could win the presidency of the United States?
I can only speak for my state. I think it would be absolutely impossible. You've got to win states like Missouri if you're going to win the presidency, states like Indiana, states like Ohio, states like Pennsylvania. It is very hard, I think, for most Americans to see how socialism would cure the problems that we are facing right now.
Yeah, and so what do you think about the label, Matt?
It's just ridiculous, She says that he's not electable, he can't win, but when you do polling, the majority of Americans poll with Bernie Sanders' views. So he is definitely electable, and he is what the American people stand for and want.
Yeah, and I think that is something that we want, right, Joe?
It's very true. She said Bernie's never even felt the chainsaws of the Republicans, but Bernie has been in office for 30 plus years, and he's been fighting the Republicans every step of the way. So I don't think she even knows what she's talking about.
Yeah, so right now we're looking at the four biggest attacks on Bernie Sanders over the last couple of weeks. One is that he's kind of changed his stance on guns, and have we talked about that yet in depth?
No, we haven't.
Did you have that story ready?
I don't.
Actually, I guess I do. Give me 1 sec. So Bernie Sanders on guns, essentially what he's been attacked on is that he has the perspective that he's voted against making it. Essentially, he's voted towards having things in place to make it so that the gun manufacturers can't be sued, and he's defended that by mom and pop shops that he doesn't want to have sued and put out of business for that. And he's also put out the idea that guns mean different things in different areas. And so what do you think about that?
Well, okay. So this is a touchy subject, and it's extremely touchy on both sides. And I like his stance on it because he's a bit more libertarian, and I kind of fall towards that when it comes to gun ownership. He wants to close the loopholes at the gun shows, which I think is an extremely good idea. He wants to put in just a few more some more background checks, a little longer background checks, which I agree with completely. And I am a gun owner, but also I lean towards more of a democratic stance. But it's a very touchy subject, because on one side you get the Democrats and they're like, oh, we shouldn't have guns, and then on the other side you're like, you're trying to take my guns. But I understand both arguments. I really do. And I get the point. Guns are dangerous. They really are. Guns are extremely dangerous. But we live in a society where right now we have someone like Trump who's talking some really radical stuff, and he wants to get rid of Muslims, and it's extremely, it'll take away your right. I am for the first line of defense against a tyrannical government is your voting. That's your first line of defense. And then your very, very, very last line of defense against a tyrannical government, I think, is a call to arms.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I do like guns. I think we need them because we are that close to having such. We're only a couple of steps away from having such a horrible thing like Nazi Germany.
And that's the thing, though. Like, Bernie wants to have a sophisticated, elaborate perspective on guns and gun rights.
Yeah, exactly.
And Hillary's attacking him for that because he's not liberal enough on gun rights. And he's willing to revisit some of the things, and maybe there's some law that creates a happy median that he would vote for, but he wasn't willing to throw the gun owners that I'm sure he knows in Vermont, not the gun owners, but the gun sellers that he knows in Vermont. I mean, he probably ran as a moderate on that particular issue because he's representing a state that is mainly rural and is mainly like guns aren't a big issue in that state. Like, there aren't gun deaths from mass shootings. There aren't gangs of violent gangs in those areas. So why would he vote against what his constituency? And so just because he has a bad record there doesn't mean that that's what he's going to take to the presidency is something else I want to point out.
Yeah.
And so when we wrap it up, when we look at it, there have been these four main attacks. One is guns. The other one is that he's not electable. The other one is that is essentially that his health care is going to be too elaborate and is anti-pragmatic. And the last one, let me think about it. What was the other one that...
I don't know. I think it was his age or something.
No.
Stupid.
It wasn't his age. We talked about it in the show. I think she's essentially dropped that. It was healthcare.
Healthcare, guns, she was saying he was part of the establishment because
Yes.
he's been in
the establishment
government for so long.
So where the fuck is the substance in that? Because I don't see the substance anywhere. Like, if you're going to attack somebody if you're a liberal, if you're claiming to be a progressive, like Hillary's trying to paint herself as being, what you don't do is you don't attack ideas as being anti-pragmatic. You go for the big dreams. You set them up, and you go and you attack after him. One of the biggest problems with Obama's presidency is that, and with the Democratic Party right now, is they run away from their victories. Like, we got the Affordable Care Act, and then like we've been playing pussyfoot with it since. She's going to expand it. Bullshit. It's under attack right now, and if anything, Rubio and the other senators that are Republican have been doing everything to undermine it. They've tried to vote to get it out, and once you get something like a single-payer system in place where people don't have to pay every time they go to the doctor, where people actually feel like healthcare is a right, they're never going to go back on that. The people, even the Republican parties, the Republicans are going to be like, whoa, the system actually works. And the only people who don't benefit from this are big pharmaceutical companies and the establishment in the medical industry, where they want to keep on taking money from us in the sense that they want to be able to negotiate prices and stuff like that, where if it's the government who's actually standing up to it, the only purchaser, and we get out insurance altogether where there's not this industry that makes money as the middleman, it'll save a lot of money. And it's not even like, as far as the electability goes, every poll has shown that's wrong. Bernie Sanders actually came out today with a statement saying that he would cream Donald Trump, and that is absolutely true. Everything that he's done when it comes to a race with Donald Trump, he would just demolish him. And here's the quote: "I would very much look forward to a race against Donald Trump, a guy who does not want to raise minimum wage, but wants to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 0.2%, who thinks wages in America are too high and who thinks that climate change is a hoax invented by the Chinese." Of course you would want to run against some jackass like that. Bernie Sanders, there is not any substantive reason to vote against Bernie Sanders. You should vote for Bernie Sanders, and that's the reason why I would argue that everybody should vote, and you should vote for Bernie if you care about your own interests.
100%. And you said everything. You said it all. That's all of it. And then when it comes to Hillary, she flip-flops. She changes her ideas. She switches back and forth to whatever side is paying her the most money. And then she calls Hillary or Sanders part of the establishment when just because he's been in office for so long. And all he's been doing is fighting the establishment the whole freaking time. All of his videos, you can look at so many videos and recordings of him going back to the 1985 of him saying, we got to get money out of politics.
Yeah.
This is a joke. We need to help the middle class. And he was walking. He walked to the I Had a Dream march, the Martin Luther King march. You know what Hillary was doing? She was working for some jackass Republican guy who voted against the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And she doesn't care who she's working for. She just wants the fucking money. Hillary is the establishment. Do not vote for Hillary. And let your friends know what is wrong with Hillary and why you shouldn't. And don't get me wrong. I am okay with a woman president. I would be fine with. I have nothing against that at all.
Yeah.
If Elizabeth Warren was running for president and not Bernie Sanders, I'd be voting for her.
Yes.
And definitely not Hillary Clinton. I would love a female president, just not someone who's part of the establishment. You're not going to get anything different with Hillary than you would with Barack Obama or George Bush.
So how do we feel about letting them listen to some of her flip-flopping?
Oh, yeah. There are recordings
Okay.
upon countless recordings of her flip-flopping.
I've got some loaded up now. Let's fire those off. So here's Hillary in recent time, last summer, talking to Ellen DeGeneres. And so I'm going to show what she says, and then I'm going to show why and then I'm going to show the old recording. And this is just to remind the Democratic base that Hillary has not been ahead of the issues like Bernie Sanders has. So here's Ellen.
Like when you're talking about, if I look at all the other candidates, right, someone who is for rights across the board, equal rights for women, equal rights for every ethnicity, equal rights for everyone, it is the only person I can look at is you. Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Well,
Sir.
And now here's her back in the day.
And to win for themselves.
Let me ask you this about some domestic issues in New York State. This state's always the social beginnings of so much of this country. People come here, a lot of immigrants. The New York Times recently began posting the celebrations of gay unions. Not just straight people getting married, but gay people who want to announce their unions. Do you think New York State should recognize gay marriage?
No.
No. Okay. Would you, let's talk about it.
I believe that marriage is not just a bond, but a sacred bond between a man and a woman.
I want someone.
And so that was her back in the day.
And then also she says she's been against NAFTA the whole time, but when NAFTA first came about, she was all for him. And that's the thing. She lies. She is always lying. And she doesn't think she's going to be held accountable or nobody's going to notice. Well, you need to find this shit. It's out there. It's online. You can watch her do it. Dude, back in 1996, she sent Bernie Sanders a picture of her and Bernie Sanders, and she even signed the fucking thing and said, I love what you've done for healthcare and people's rights.
And this is what I'm talking about.
And then now she's talking fucking shit on him?
Yes, because that's what she feels is the right thing to do to try and win the presidency. And that's, again, she's like trying to sell people on the pragmatic idea. But if you want to speak to me, if you want to speak to my soul, what you need to do is sell me on a big dream, not on a pragmatic idea. Because, again, that's my biggest problem with the Democratic Party right now is that we keep on pussyfooting or backing up and being like, oh, well, we don't want to start a fight with Republicans. We don't want to piss them off too bad or alienate their base. But guess what? The Republicans are never going to come around. Like, there's no centrist in the Democratic Party, no matter how centrist they run, that would start stealing votes from Democrats, especially when you run as an establishment person. But here's Bernie Sanders back in 1995.
The same people that would vote to cut defense
And actually, and sorry, just to quickly clarify, it's not going to be Bernie Sanders who's on it first. It's going to be Duke Cunningham, and then Bernie Sanders is going to take him to task.
And Duke Cunningham ended up going to jail or getting impeached.
I don't care about
right?
his story. Like, I really don't. But you're going to listen to what he has to say and how Bernie responds to it.
$7 billion, the same ones that
and just to contrast it, this is the same time frame that Hillary was saying that she believes marriage is between a man and a woman. And again, this is just to remind the base. I'm going to post a video on The Evil Atheist so everyone has an opportunity to see the thing in totality. We're going to post at least 2 other videos on The Evil Atheist. Please check them out on Facebook and join us in the conversation if you feel like you have something you would like to add in. But here it goes.
Put homos in the military, the same ones that would not fund BRAC, the same ones that would not clear up. No, I will not. Sit down, you socialist.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yield.
The committee will
the ludicrousy of this, even
the
to
committee
appeal
will be in
this.
order, and the gentleman will suspend. The gentleman from Vermont.
I wonder if I could question the gentleman from California. I am rising in support of the amendment.
The chair is in charge. The chair is speaking. The gentleman from Vermont has been recognized for a period of 5 minutes, and you may now proceed.
I thank the chairman very much and would like the opportunity if the gentleman from California would respond. Just to ask him a brief question, if I might. Now, my ears may have been playing a trick on me, but I thought I heard the gentleman a moment ago say something, quote unquote, about homos in the military. Was I right in hearing that expression?
Absolutely. Putting homosexuals in the military.
You said something about homos in the military. Was the gentleman referring to the many thousands and thousands of gay people who have put their lives on the line in countless wars defending this country? Was that the group of people that the gentleman was referring to?
I'm talking about the military people in the military do not support.
That's not what we were talking about. You used the word homos in the military. You have insulted thousands of men and women who have put their lives on the line.
I'm talking about you and liberals like you that keep the foreign.
See, he is so electable. Look, he knows how to stand up to the Republicans. He did right there. And he put him in his fucking place. And he told him that he offended thousands upon thousands of people who've given up their lives to fight for his rights. Ooh, my fucking God. He is completely electable.
Yeah, and so we've only got a minute left, so we're going to have to wrap this up here. But for sure, join the conversation on the Facebook group, The Evil Atheists. You'll find this on YouTube at Recklessly Skeptical, so join us there as well.
Make sure you go to the Evil Atheists group page. There is the Evil Atheists community page, but then there's also the group page. I've noticed some people have joined and liked the community page, but they haven't joined the group page.
Yeah,
so I just wanted to point that out.
Cool. And so thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Next week we'll be back with more, and we'll maybe have more polling results, and we'll have a good idea of what's going to happen in Iowa. But feel the burn.
Feel the burn. And hey, everybody back east, stay safe out there and stay warm.
Yeah, and until next time, think passionately.
Peace.